Oh, Shrek. 338 has taken a stance on the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yes, he's a big hockey fan.
Yeah.
I'm in a Discord with that guy.
This guy's one guy?
Yeah, it's one guy.
Holy shit.
It's technically two people, but he's the main.
Still very
That's
impressive.
also what 538 was. It was Nate Silver. It was one guy. Yeah. And then he founded the brand 538, him and his friend. Then they got bought out by the New York Times or ABC. I want to say ABC. And then ABC bought them out, bought them a whole bunch of staff, realized that no one gives a fuck about election statistics except like a very niche community of election heads. That shut down 538.
Yeah.
So 538 is gone because Nate Silver got bought out, so he doesn't have the rights to 538 anymore.
The fact that the biggest election head in history didn't even realize that 538 is gone is not bode well for their...
Well, it's foreign. I don't really look at foreign elections, except for UK.
So what happened was ABC bought him out and then shut him down, basically.
That's crazy. Yeah,
they enshittified election coverage. So we have two elections to cover today. One is for who's going to be Prime Minister of Canada, and then we're going to touch on the papal
enclave.
We're going to touch on the Curia.
We're going to do a live watching of Enclave.
Not Australia has an election right now?
Yeah, it's Liberals versus Labour. It's a big one.
Do Australians even know that Australia has elections right now?
They have to vote by law.
Yeah, they have
compulsory voting
Whoa,
there. Yeah.
Emily asked me about that.
Emily asked you about compulsory voting?
Yeah, like what will happen if people
it.
were forced to vote. Yeah, like it's obviously like a lot of downsides, like forcing someone's hand to vote.
Yeah.
Well, it's they force you to vote, and they also give you free hot dogs at the polling station.
Holy shit! They would not have to force me.
They're still living in the 19th century down there. You get beer for showing up.
Sorry, how many hot dogs?
One, probably. Probably the shittiest hot dog with no toppings.
And they take the driest, like...
The actual answer is one hot dog per vote, so if you're smart, you can get multiple.
Oh, that's true. I could probably get like 12.
I'm going to look this up. Democracy sausages. What it's called. The fuck? Democracy sausages are sausages wrapped in a slice of bread, brought from a sausage sizzle operated as a fundraiser at Australian polling places on election day, often in aid of the institutions that house the polling place. So from what it looks like, you have to pay for these.
Oh my god.
I also do not fuck with bread as like a hot dog / sausage.
You gotta understand that Australia fucking loves putting shit on untoasted bread.
Yeah.
You ever hear of fairy bread?
Yeah, I'm aware of Australia's
You ever see this, Nana? This is Australia's national dish, fairy bread.
No way, actually?
It's uncooked white bread, butter, sprinkles.
What the fuck? That's like a psychopath thing, like... Yeah, that's the shit that lady in Get Out would eat.
Australians gotta be jealous of, like, stargazy pie.
They yearn for a return to Britain. Honestly, Australia might be the only country you could actually decolonize because they all really want to live in Britain.
Yeah.
That's one of the things we should definitely pick up from Australia, though. Is like we should pick up just giving things at the voting station. Like, we don't do stickers, we don't do anything.
Stickers? Yeah. The stickers actually brings out a number of, like, weird collector type people to the polls.
Yeah.
You gotta understand, though, Shrey, this is a country, most of the people here are Anglo-Canadians. There's no greater reward to an Anglo-Canadian than a smug sense of superiority.
I complained about this about COVID. In COVID, like, every other country was having parties when COVID ended.
Yeah.
Our country was like, no, get your shot, and this is your moral duty. Feel good about it.
Yes. There's nothing that is more rewarding to an Anglo-Canadian than the ability to go to another Canadian being like, oh, you didn't vote?
Well, I voted.
Yeah.
Let me guess, you voted your conscience, you didn't consider strategic voting?
I'm a real I guess I'll say I'm a real voter head. I love voting for the love of the game.
Yeah.
But I also love being really annoying about it.
Yeah.
Which is like, I will vote for someone who is guaranteed not to win. Yeah. So I will throw away my vote. I will tell people that I didn't vote. But I will also advocate for a certain candidate that is likely to win for other people.
Let's go.
And I just love, like, I guess messing with people about it a little bit. It's the piss everyone off strategy. brings joy to my soul.
Yeah, we're in I don't know how long this has been a thing, but it seems like it would be since inception of political parties in Canada. But every election is kind of like, well, you got to strategically vote. Do you want X to win or do you not want X to win? Like, fuck all that. Yeah. Vote for who you want to vote for or vote for who you don't want to vote for.
I am very anti-strategic voting.
Yeah.
But the thing is that, in the riding I live in, there's only 3 parties, and it's the 3 main ones.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I'll either vote NDP or just show up and spoil my ballot. Because I'm not voting Liberal, that's for sure.
Say again.
This is for strategic vote heads. You might like this website.
Send it to the Signal.
Oh, speaking of strategic vote heads, we're sort of nebulously covering the Canadian election right now. Did you see, Shrey, and I know you saw it because I sent it to the chat, so unless you're not reading messages from me, you saw this. A strategic voting website complained that the NDP was harassing them.
Yes, did you see the harassing?
It was, the NDP was like, you guys are just making shit up.
The harassing was they call them liberal pawns, and it is made.
Oh my god!
Which is literally true, right?
Yeah.
Because what these strategic voting websites do is they just tell you to vote Liberal.
Yeah.
Because if you're gonna strategically vote for if you're a conservative voter, there's no point in strategic voting because your 2 parties merged together 20 years ago.
Right.
And then if you're an ABC liberal person, then they're just going to tell you to vote Liberal every time because they can't really accurately ascertain what the voting result is going to be on a riding-by-riding basis. I know the 338 Canada guy does it, sort of, but, you can't reliably do it. That's, there's no polling data that breaks it down that granularly.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at the article itself that talks about the harassment cases, there's, a ton of people who are here, let me just share my screen. Here, this is the NDP faces allegations thing.
Yeah.
I don't think it amounts to harassment, says Democracy Watch. I don't think that's harassment court, says Doctor of Law. But it's just no one thinks it's harassment except for the people who are at the smart voting thing. And it's all stupidly simple things.
That's wild.
Fake socialists, liberal pawns, paid for Liberal Party.
Shrey, the thing that you sent, which is Progressive Vote Guide, it says a strategic NDP vote can make a big difference for Canada. So I have someone from the NDP in my riding. I figure this website's goal is to give you the NDP candidate for your riding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I put in my postal code. I'm not going to dox myself again. And it says, we don't have data for this riding yet. Buddy, I've already voted.
Yeah.
And you haven't figured it out?
Yeah, I heard one of the big...
I just started recording. I didn't know we were recording yet.
That's all good. You were pretty good on the one coming directly from the computer, so I think we're good.
I think we're okay.
But one of the big indicators that the strategic voting thing was bullshit was when the sites were telling people to vote for Justin Trudeau for his first when he was first running, and he swept anyway. It was such a here, vote for the person. I mean, actually, like Bennett said, they don't take into account individual write-ins, and they also don't take into account how the vote sways. And so his popularity was not taken into account, and he won. Was it by a landslide? He won by definitely a significant amount.
He did, yeah.
And yeah, so
I mean, we've discussed this. We discussed this a couple months ago during the Ontario election, but it's these strategic voting websites don't just swing Liberal. They try to get you to spoil NDP ridings, where they're if you're in an NDP safe riding, they'll tell you to vote Liberal for just no reason.
They are liberal pawns. What else do they call them?
I don't understand how you could reasonably pretend these guys are anything but a puppet for the Liberal Party.
They also, because they did this whole reaction to it, they've raised more awareness that they're liberal puppets. If they didn't do shit, they could have just been oh, the NDP is just throwing a hissy fit.
Well, they thought
everyone would have believed them.
I think they genuinely thought people would be on their side. They thought people would be mad at the NDP for calling people liberal pawns. Are you insane? Go on Twitter for one day.
You can't. If you are a liberal, you cannot be deluded into thinking that you're the cool guy.
Yeah.
You can believe that you are correct,
right?
But you're not the cool guy.
Never that.
It's been proven multiple times at this point that the strategic voting ones is just it's just always generally just showing Liberals except for the very hardcore NDP ridings. The worst case scenario, the worst case was this riding. So I'm going to share my screen again. Where for this riding, the Humber Creek Black River.
Humber River Black Creek?
Humber River Black Creek, which I think was, right?
No.
No, okay, well,
yeah.
it
Spencer,
keeps pushing
block that.
But it's also not true. So.
Go ahead,
It
Shay.
kept pushing the Liberals to be the ones who vote for it, even though the NDP came first. And then they did it the exact same thing this time, and it was even closer.
Wow.
And it was really lucky that no one believed the voting ones, the strategic voting website, because it was really close that the Conservatives almost took it.
Now, if you're in this riding, you should vote Communist because Jean Maguire.
Jean
that's
Maguire
her riding.
is in this riding. And she's absolutely
She's
sick.
goated. She's goated. That was the harassment thing. Speaking of online harassment. Speaking of online harassment, this has been the canceled election where now coming up on maybe a dozen candidates have been dropped across all parties over a variety of online behaviors.
Yeah.
So there was one of them actually was in real life. Paul Chiang?
Mm-hmm.
Dropped a joke at a speech about how we should turn in this conservative candidate from a neighboring riding to claim a bounty placed by the Chinese government.
Did they actually place a bounty on
He's
it?
right.
They might have, I don't know, but it was a joke.
If they put a bounty on you, I'm not totally against this bullshit. What did he do?
Look, all I'm saying.
Bounty, but have you heard about the Chinese police stations in Canada?
Yes.
No.
Yes. This was a news story from like 2 years ago.
Yeah. Essentially, there's Chinese police stations in Canada looking for dissent, especially now those within diaspora and those who have family back in China.
Really?
And so,
Yeah, they're like
Yeah.
there's like spies embedded in Canada looking for Chinese people who come here and then like shit talk China.
Okay,
Yeah.
so to any of the Chinese people listening, to one of the 10 listeners out there, there is this thing called the Easter Parade that happens at the Toronto beaches every year. And every year, there is a huge contingent of the Falun Gong people, and they are always talking shit about you guys. So
Yeah, so in the past, parties have been a bit blasé about who their backbenchers are, but because of the increasing onlineness of real life, they've gotten a little bit more invasive in their investigations, and yet still somehow these people are slipping through. Like, according to the National Post, scrutinizing someone's personal life is unpleasant for everyone involved, which complicates disclosure of deeply private information. Parties sometimes ask for current and past email addresses so they can scrub the internet for mentions of messages the potential candidate sent. They may be asked to surrender passwords for social media sites.
passwords.
Or to friend a party official to allow them to, quote, search for transgressions. Some questionnaires ask about the person's activity on dating sites like Tinder or Ashley Madison, and whether any naked photos of the person appear online.
Dropping Ashley Madison is such a specific
But it's a Canadian site.
Canadian.
Yeah.
But like that was just one major thing, right?
It was included. I
Yeah.
dropped a couple words from that sentence where
Okay.
they sort of highlight that that's like the most extreme site you could be on in their opinion, right?
Okay.
Parties will request consent letters allowing them to access personal information for government institutions like taxes owing, citizenship status, and military service history, or even whether an applicant's name is on a child abuse registry. So, and yet, in spite of this, all three parties have had to drop people over online comments. And the thing is, from what I can tell, there's also an honor system here where they ask, have you ever said something cancelable online? And every one of these people presumably said no.
Yeah.
Now, there are two reasons they could have said no. One, they knew they did say something cancelable online and didn't want to get dropped from the party rolls. And two, which I think is more likely, things happen online so fast and people are posting so much stuff, they genuinely forgot that 3 years ago they said they wanted to publicly hang Justin Trudeau.
Yeah.
And don't clip that.
Yeah. On his podcast, Bennett had this to say.
Publicly hang Justin Trudeau.
I mean, some of them were pretty rough, right? Some of them were like, okay, maybe there is something there. For example, Paul Chang or the city councillor in Windsor, I believe, who said that Justin Trudeau should be hanged.
Yeah.
That was okay. That might be a little bit rough, but some of them are just like, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
There's nothing to really bring this person down except that we're just too scared
Well,
of anything.
I think, like, to your point on, like, the two reasons, I think, like, there might be one more reason of someone who, like, thinks of something they might have done, and they're like, well, surely that's not cancelable today, right?
Yeah. It turns out it is.
It
The thing is that
absolutely
we're either going to have to let only old people run from now on because only they don't have an online presence where you could misconstrue something or cancel them over something, or we're just going to have to get over what people are posting online.
Yeah, I think I really think that people are just gonna have to get over a lot of this stuff. We're gonna very quickly hit the critical point where like every single person's digital footprint includes some call for violence, technically not real, but like just because they're joking around with friends or something like that.
Yeah.
Frankly, if you haven't said something that could be seen as like an extreme call for violence in a group chat or online or something like that, I will think you're more strange and probably ghoulish than a person who has.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier. There's also a contingent of people who are online but are mostly just like lurkers. But the thing is, those people are also the least likely to run for anything like significant. So automatically, I guess they're kind of shocked. But I don't know if I think we should forget about this posting thing altogether. Like, I'm just thinking right now, there's several posts I have on Twitter that are song lyrics, let me remind you. But sometimes the song lyrics get a bit feisty, and I don't put quotes around or anything like that, so...
Look, yeah. I've been getting recommended on Instagram Reels. I think I've gotten between like 5 and 10 Reels that are just like Asian women singing King Von.
Wait, what?
So,
man.
Here's
look,
an example.
Everyone's gonna have
one
some.
that I don't think should have been dropped. So this was a guy, Rod Loyola from Edmonton. He ran for the Liberals. He was an NDP elected official for about 8 years or so. Like or 10 years now. He's an elected official. In 2009, he made a comment that Hamas should be lionized, and because of that comment, he has been dropped in 2025.
Wow.
Wait, what? To be lionized? What does that mean?
It means like glorified.
Oh, he was ahead of his time. What? In 2009? Wow.
2009, and since then he's been elected and was officially representing a part of Edmonton provincially.
See, if our federal parties want to stop dropping prime candidates, what they need to do is pass a tripartisan bill for a right to be forgotten, that like they have in the EU, and then scrub the online scrub the ever living shit out of the online presences of every candidate they have.
I think that would be a bipartisan.
Yeah, I think that there's going to be one of two things, and I mentioned this, is like, one is yes, where you can scrub all information of you that's like either all of it as it sits right now or all of it of a certain amount of time ago or a certain date or something. Or there's going to be something that functions similar to like an anti-discrimination bill, where they just say like anything you posted earlier than 5 years ago, like you're not legally responsible for, and like news agencies can't report on it, stuff like that. And like you can't discriminate against someone for that reason. If it looks like you did, they can sue you. Something like that. I can see that being a Band-Aid solution that they might do because no one wants to actually fix the problem.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, but I don't know. Maybe we should think of a different framing.
It's not a great framing. Right?
Anti-discriminatory is like, are you discriminating against me for posting online? I have needs, like...
I think it would be like that. It's like, are you discriminating against this person for old internet posts? And,
I mean...
It's an odd phrasing, but yes. Like, it makes sense. But one of my favorite things about this was... Because Paul Chang was first, right? Did I even get the name right?
Yeah, that's
Paul
fine.
Chang, yeah.
Okay. Whew. He was first. And then everyone started going after the Liberals.
He wasn't even dropped, though, right? Like,
and it took
he
a
resigned
day.
himself.
Yeah. It took a day where everyone was like, oh, why hasn't Carney already kicked him out? And the next morning, he resigned by himself.
Right.
And everyone's like, oh, Carney took too long. Like, buddy, Carney told him, resign right fucking now. That's a graceful way to go about it. No one should be complaining about that.
Right.
But my favorite thing was the other parties couldn't even really attack him for it. Because the Conservative parties just wiped the sweat from their brow and were like, whew, thank God we now have cover to get rid of 3 of our candidates in one day. For the exact same thing.
Do we know like what they did, or we don't have to get into it, but
I just remember seeing that news and then the flood of Conservative candidates doing the same, and I was like, wow, this all at once.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Conservative candidate casualties include Simon Payette, removed from his Quebec riding Friday for disparaging remarks about a survivor of the École Polytechnique massacre who was running for the Liberals. École Polytechnique was the misogynistic massacre in Montreal.
Yeah.
I assume it had to do something with gun rights because there's now an anti-gun political action group that uses the École Polytechnique as its inspiration. I don't remember what it's called.
I don't care that much,
I assume that was the
frankly.
origin
This
of
is
it.
before my time, but
Poly se souvient. We remember Poly. So I assume it was related to that. Another one was Windsor, Ontario candidate Mark McKenzie was pushed overboard amid news he joked in a 2022 podcast about giving the death penalty to then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
like, I don't know. That one's not so. Okay, whatever.
Like, give me like 3 sips of beer.
Get ready for this one, though. Toronto area's Dan Patel was let go after it emerged that he endorsed a social media post advocating the deportation of unnamed, quote, nonsense people to India.
Wait, what? Nonsense, just people he doesn't like.
So I assume he just means get rid of Indians.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
I
was
he
too charitable.
apparently like not like reacted it, but he's a different react. So he showed that he endorsed it officially.
Yeah.
Oh,
it was one of those reacts you have to actually search
The
for.
hugging face reacts or whatever.
Yeah, or something like that.
But yeah,
Wait, there's 2 more.
there's a lot of posts around this where it'll be like a video of like Indians in an Indian community like having fun, and everyone's like, they should have left their culture.
Yeah, oh my god, I've seen a lot of those. Like,
yeah, and I imagine it's kind of part of that group of people who are just like, I can't stand people enjoying themselves in Canada.
So
Mr. Patel was the group that was more pro-Modi and anti some of the, I think more of the Sikh section. So the others, it's more like internal diaspora.
Got it.
So another candidate who was dropped was Stephen Marquis, who was posting anti-vaccine and anti-WEF conspiracies on Twitter, now X, the everything app. And then the final candidate drop was Lawrence Singh, who was removed from his BC constituency, but neither he nor the party said why.
I feel like that's the worst one. Holy shit. Like, what? They couldn't even...
He is running, just so you know. He's still running.
Singh is still running?
Independent. He's on a vendetta.
So they didn't say why, but we can only imagine.
Holy shit, what did he do?
Speaking of the WEF, we won't really go into this, but Klaus Schwab has stepped down as WEF president.
Oh, yeah. I haven't read enough into this yet.
So a new global pope for neoliberalism will have to be selected.
Yeah.
Wow, new global pope, huh?
Yeah.
Look, give it to a new Keynesian.
Yeah.
It'll still suck, but like at least... I was gonna say...
Wait, here's how Poilievre can still win. WEF calls up Mark Carney.
WEF calls up Mark Carney or
He
Stephen
recommends
Harper.
Mark Carney for the job.
I would not be shocked if
That's
Stephen
a
Harper
pretty
showed
graceful
up.
way for Christie to leave.
Freeland?
Chrystia Freeland being WEF president, now that is a dark horse candidate, but I
Yeah.
can see it happening.
That would be... Because the WEF is the one that, like, a lot of these fringe groups
They
have,
hate,
like, anti-Semitic, like,
Yes.
they control the world type stuff, right?
Yeah, and that's why I don't think Stephen Harper would be called up, mostly not because he's like anti-Semitic, but because he's sort of a weirdo who's sort of on the fringe of neoliberalism, right? Like
Well,
he's
he's an IDU.
yeah,
right?
he's the IDU guy, right? He's still the president of the IDU.
He's already sufficiently a puppet master behind the scenes.
Yes, he already has a job
Yeah.
like that, and also like I don't know if the WEF like fucks with like Fortress Alberta or anything like that, or any other schizo shit he likes.
They don't like Albertan beef.
Yeah. No, do you know about
You
his
know
Fortress
IDU?
Alberta thing?
Yeah, what's IDU?
Oh, you're gonna love this one.
It's the International
So-
Democratic Union, right?
every single political party in Canada is part of an international alliance of other political parties. Fun fact, the Democrats and the NDP are in the same alliance. The Liberals are not allied with the Democrats.
Are they in the Liberal International? The LPC?
I think they're part of Progressive Action, but it could be Liberal International. But this is the IDU, the International Democracy Union, which is the right of center one.
Yep.
And its founders include, Margaret Thatcher, Helmut Kohl, Eric Nielsen. Like, it's all these
real
center
peanut
right.
gallery. Yeah. The Liberals are part of the Liberal International, which is a hilarious name for an organization.
These are every single party who's part of it. So you can see it's like they're leading in quite a few places. Italy is one of their big ones. Israel is one of their big ones. And then, of course, you get to the really big one, which is the United States.
Yeah, Republican Party. So the IDU is a bit on the right.
So what is it? It's
sort of like the Communist International.
Oh,
for conservatives.
Interesting.
And basically every party has these. The Liberals have their own international. It's called the Liberal International. The Liberal Party's in it. The NDP is in what's it called?
IWW.
No, that would be hilarious. Cool. I don't know if the IWW even still exists, but
yeah.
I guess the current chair of the IDU is Stephen Harper.
Yeah.
So if you support right-wing governments across the country, you're basically supporting Canadians, is my point.
Wow, way to make it about Canada.
And Stephen Harper, so his Fortress Alberta plan, this is sort of an aside, but basically, you know how over the years we've had to give a bunch of concessions to Quebec to keep them in Confederation? They're allowed to do basically whatever. They're allowed to kick out the CRA and make their own federal tax agency. Yeah. They're allowed to kick out the RCMP and make their own equivalent. They're allowed to do all this stuff, right? They're allowed to control interprovincial trade. So Stephen Harper, before he became Conservative Party leader, published a white paper where he was like, Alberta could hold the country hostage by implementing all of these concessions at the same time. Because these concessions weren't Quebec specific, they were province wide. Any province could do these things in theory. So he's like, in theory, if Alberta wanted to put the screws on the federal government, they could cut off all transit through the province, cut the province off from the rest of the country, kick the CRA out, kick the RCMP out, kick the government out entirely, and then just sort of camp in their fortress until their demands are met. So that seems like the kind of thing that the WEF does not fuck with.
There's also, I guess with the IDU and all of that, what it broadly shows is, even while the Conservatives and the Republicans are, I guess, different to their degrees of being, different right-wing parties of different countries, they broadly are aligned towards the same ends. They're just at different stages of the same ends. The end goals are the same and all of that. So, if you want to call the Conservatives here just diet Republicans, I think you're
fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough. You're not in the wrong.
They just took Germany, right? CDU. That's now. So IDU just took another government.
No, I think they're in. I don't think they're in government. I think the SDP is in government in Germany. I think the Bernsteinites are in charge over there.
Okay. I think
this is very eye-opening. So Shreyas is showing the new patriotic party in Ghana as part of the IDU, and if you don't, obviously you want to know, in Ghana there's no concept of left and right politics. They pretty much have.
If you say they have up versus down, I'm gonna kill you.
No. I mean, wait, what's wrong with that? Upper class versus downer class? Yeah. But anyway.
No, this is just because every single YouTube video you see, everyone's it's not left versus right. It's up versus top
which is left versus right.
There is no. There is essentially still a two-party system. There's the new Democratic Congress and the new Patriotic Party. Who pretty much have been trading seats since the inception. But Ghana does have a socialist party formed by Kwame Nkrumah called the Conventions People Party or something. And this is why I think Ghana actually is one of the most successful CIA stories. Because the amount of the amount that the Revolutionary Party of Kwame Nkrumah did, and they've just Men in Black snapped out any memory of socialism or communism or any dead ass. I was talking to my mom a few weeks ago. I'm telling her Communist Party. She says, "What the fuck is that?" I'm like, yeah, the Communist Party of Canada. And she's like, who is that again? And I had to explain to her essentially what communism was, and then explain like why I'm in support of it. Like they have no clue of any sort of radical politics, and it's kept them in this kind of like shit sandwich where the shit is the two pieces of bread and the inside is the Ghanaian people.
So NDC is one of these parties.
Yeah.
So they're affiliated with the Progressive Alliance, which is the NDP.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So they're in the same. They're in like the Social Democrat International. Basically.
Got it.
It's bad when the Workers' Party is not part of the Socialist International.
Yeah, so that's the skinny on the WEF. The election, Trey, I think you said you think Poilievre will still win. So you're on the side of don't believe the polls.
I just strongly believe that people who support the Conservatives right now are extremely supportive. And as we all know, the winner of the election is not the one who's the most popular, right? It's not the one who's the best for the country. It's the one who gets the most votes. And I just believe that the Conservatives are way more enthusiastic about this vote than the Liberals are. Usually, when there's a high turnout, that's a change election.
Maybe, but I feel like a lot of people with the Trump situation, there's a lot of motivated center-left voters this time around that will swing it to the Liberals. I think Carney will win. That's my take.
I still can't. I feel like it's kind of a coin flip still. I feel like at this point, there's a lot of people who will see the polls and see. So, before when the Liberals were trailing, I think people will see that, get concerned about Poilievre's win, and then make more of an effort to vote and then convince their friends and family to vote for Carney. But now that Carney's ahead, there might be a sense of complacency where they're like, oh, well, nothing to really worry about now. And it doesn't... It's kind of like the opposite of what happened with Joe Biden in 2020. Yeah.
I personally, I buy the polls. I think people have been given enough reasons to, be scared of Poilievre for, between Trump, all the, economic instability, all of, Trump's just general bullshit antics, Poilievre following up with a lot of those bullshit antics. And just, Carney being, on paper very experienced, Poilievre having no experience, it seems to line up with there actually being a big swing. Yeah. And people being like, oh, well, we didn't like Trudeau and that kind of liberal stuff. But it's pretty clear that Poilievre is really not doing much with it.
Yeah.
He had a whole wave when he didn't have anyone really looking at him. And then now when people actually had to assess it, it makes sense that he would kind of crumble. Also, because he's done nothing to stop himself from crumbling, spare try to copy California's crime policies from the 1980s.
Oh, speaking of crumbling, there was a hilarious interview with, what's his name? Doug Ford's campaign manager. Not an interview. He was on this podcast. And he says on Poilievre's campaign, he says, quote, "This campaign is going to be studied for decades as the biggest fucking disaster." And then goes on to say, "You're fucking it up." This is a whole tirade of just insulting Pierre Poilievre's campaign. And then when Ford was pressed for a response, he says, "Sometimes the truth hurts." This guy does not like Poilievre. That's crazy.
I think you're just savvy enough to recognize that Poilievre is cooked. And the fact that Ford is against Poilievre makes me... That's one of the main reasons I think Poilievre is toast. Because if Poilievre actually did have a 50-50 chance, Ford would not be this, bridge burning.
Blasé.
Yeah.
It is impressive. I mean, the reason why people like Monsieur Poilievre is because of how much of an attack dog he is, right? At the end of the day, he was really good at tearing down his enemy. It's really weird that after Trump got elected, he hasn't been able to use his skills to tear down Trump.
Because it's that's true. That's true. That's a good point. I think I don't know how big this base is, but there is there's a few people. I was reading Jeremy Appel, who writes for this thing called The Orchard on Substack. He went to Poilievre's campaign rally in Alberta, and he spoke to a number of people, and a few of them actually are on this like weird denial thing, saying, well, the tariff stuff is really our fault, like, you know, like Trump's just being aggressive, like he's not really serious. So there are some people who like do not want to hear someone shitting on Trump, and I think he's scared to go in that direction.
Well, the new argument I heard, which is really interesting, was why are we so focused on Trump? He's an American. We should be focused on Canadian issues, and all the Canadian issues are caused by liberals. And that's the kind of attack that going on.
That's a good one.
I mean, same with all of America's issues, but let's not go too deep on that.
I thought it would be interesting to actually go down some of those platforms. Maybe not for today, if we have time, but go down some of the platforms, just point at all the holes.
Okay. I will say, in regards to the platforms, parties in these elections should just stop releasing platforms. No one gives a fuck.
Yeah, literally.
Like, the Conservatives didn't release a platform until after advance voting like closed, right? Like, who cares?
Yeah, there should be. I can't believe there's no like deadline on when to release your platform. Like,
I've maintained that just like for at least optics, you should have to have a platform submitted public before a single person is allowed to vote for your party.
Yeah.
Your platform can be ass, but if you don't post a platform, no one can vote for your party. That's it.
Like, it goes to show, like, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, I don't like Carney's policies, or you don't read it anyway. Like, like, you're not gonna read that document anyway. Like, what are you talking about?
And Poilievre's platform was ass. What can I say, man? Like,
actually, Shrey, can you pull it up on your side? We'll look it up. We'll look at it together.
Bring it home tax reform. Fiscal common sense. Boost the economy.
Whoa. Mr. Poilievre, you're here with us?
Yeah, I've got a post-nasal drip, and my Poilievre voice is actually fucking on point right now, man. It's kind of heaven.
That's why Poilievre has that accent. He has
every single chapter is like, build the homes for a change. And then you go to the next one, stop the crime for a change. The next one, fix the budget to kill inflation for a change. Stand up for Canada for a change. And it's just annoying and a little pretentious.
Wait, stand up for Canada?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
For a change. It makes it sound like it's a change for him, you know?
Yeah. My favorite was when so one, the kind of elephant in the room is he's been constantly trying to call an election for how long? An election got called and he was the last person to put out a platform.
Yeah.
Which is just like, what are you doing?
That's
like, you should have had this locked and loaded. It didn't have to be great, but just like instant ready to go.
Facts. Yeah, like he and Jagmeet should have their platforms ready to go. You can give Mark Carney the benefit of the doubt. He only had 2 months or something to put something together.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Singh and especially Poilievre has been shitting on Justin Trudeau's policies for years now. Like, you have anything to offer? Like, no.
Yeah. The best part, I think, is he says no more anti-union bills. Like,
wait.
C-377 and C-525, that's what he gives as examples of anti-union bills. Both of these bills were put forward by Conservatives, and both of these anti-union bills Poilievre voted for.
Oh my god. God, what a bitch. I hate him so much.
So it's like
such a snake. Holy shit.
The thing is like, he's had an entire career where he's just been like anti-union, anti-worker for the entire time, and now he's pretending to like do the opposite.
Yeah.
And it's crystal clear to anyone who knows anything about him. Don't get me wrong, no one does.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter, but still.
He has cultivated like actually no, Doug Ford's better than he is. Like Doug Ford, yeah. Like I was gonna say, like there seems to be easier for the Conservatives to cultivate a rapport with union and working parties, but that's Ontario Conservatives. I haven't seen anything of the sort. Go ahead, Trey.
So the Ontario Conservatives really got into the idea of supporting. They say it's supporting union members, not union leadership. That's how they put it. Mm-hmm. And they were heavily inspired by Bojo and the United Kingdom, where Boris Johnson really was able to capture the Labour vote.
It is like that's a good idea. Like the leadership a lot of the time in the unions are or they can seem out of touch with the general membership sometimes. And when like your leadership like makes a comment on a candidate or something that is an endorsement for the whole union, there's a number of people who feel pissed off about that. So yeah, that's a good plan.
Yeah, some of my favorite overall policies from Poilievre recently are like, one, he's just a reactionary anti-liberal, which is like, that's what everyone knows. If you're voting for him, it's because he's a reactionary anti-liberal. If you're not, it's because he's reactionary anti-liberal. So he's decided to make this turn in trying to regain some steam in the face of losing pretty much every point of lead that he had.
Yeah.
And in this turn, he's decided to pick up all of California's crime policies. He says there are anti-Jewish riots ravaging all across Canada.
Yes, that was such a weird line from the debate.
Mm-hmm. And he's decided to pick up things like 3 strikes laws for crime, which they tried in California, and it was a terrible idea. Minimum sentences.
That, like, before the at the second crime, because 3 strikes are out, they just kind of like went all in on the third one.
Yeah.
He was talking about mandatory minimum sentences, raising them. That's also a thing that does not work because, again, if someone knows they're getting put away for 20 years, they're that much more likely to shoot a cop on the way out. And it makes things actively more violent. Not only that, but he says that our streets are getting ravaged with and more crime, which is just like not true. Yeah. There's a lot of like visible homelessness and stuff like that, but again, this is because of inequality, which is something that conservatives do not help.
No, Spenny, he's right. There is more crime if you consider loitering crime.
True. You are correct. I forgot that being homeless is a crime. So.
Yeah. And a lot of people do consider that. Like that's why they call the injection sites as like drug dens and shit like that. Like
And he's also kind of made a more Trumpian pivot than I would have expected. Because I thought like calling Poilievre like a Trump light was not great because I thought he was like lame. He has no charisma. And he's also not hammering that hard on the
like
policy.
Trump sometimes, you know?
Yeah, but he then went, when he was asked about whether or not he would accept the results of the election, he pretty much said it depends whether or not the Liberals win.
He did, actually?
Pretty much.
That's incredible.
It's that's not a direct quote from him, but he was like, yes, it depends, like what happens is more or less it.
I know there's a liberal intern right now making that edit along with Trump's quotes and ready to post it on Twitter right now. Like that's just feeding them ideas on like how to campaign against him. That's wild.
Yeah. Same with like the use of the notwithstanding clause, which again he said he would use it for for being tough on crime, which is like a Nixon policy.
Yeah.
Which didn't work.
There was something here of like stop the escalation on alcohol. What is he talking about?
Alcohol tax. So alcohol taxes do go up every year.
I agree with that.
So he's gonna bring it back to 2017 levels.
So Canadians can pay less.
Businesses earn more.
I thought it was saying businesses drink more.
I could fuck with cheaper alcohol. Honestly, that I'm a reactionary.
Speaking of reactionaries, the Pope died. On Sunday.
What a segue.
I know, right?
And we've covered the Canadian election. Now let's cover.
Wait, can I got two more things. I got two more.
Sherry's got to leave in 5 minutes.
All right. Yeah. All right. Well, I was gonna say that the NDP platform is. I'm not touching it. It's not worth my time. That was half of it.
It's horrible. It's legitimately horrible. I keep saying this. The NDP is a more right wing platform than the Liberals at this point. It's awful.
Yeah.
That's wild. How about the Greens?
Good point. I actually haven't looked at the Greens.
Yeah, I don't even know if they have power.
No one cares about the Greens.
We know it's not going to happen. I think that's the trick.
So
I should look at that. You're right. Maybe I'll become a Green guy.
The Pope, the late Pope, he was kind of a nice guy, as popes go.
Yeah, Liam.
Yeah. A big proponent of migrants and softening policy on LGBT people in the church, as well as general outreach to the poor and downtrodden and general liberalizing factors within the Catholic Church. Now, before his death, I didn't realize this, but he went on an absolute purge. He's appointed over half the cardinals who will be voting for the next pope. So it's highly likely that a similar candidate will take power. So why don't we go through the potential next popes? Some of them I won't talk about very much because they're literally who's, and some of them have a very high chance of actually being elected. So first up, Pietro Parolin, 70 years old. He's currently like, how do I describe this? Sort of like the Kamala Harris to Francis's Biden would be the best way to put it.
Holy hell.
So he's sort of like...
The guy who's only watched one election.
So Parolin
he's
took...
like Chrystia Freeland to Justin Trudeau.
Yes, that's another way to put it. He was sort of
that makes sense.
he was sort of an appendage of Francis and oversaw a lot of like Francis's policies, especially as Francis got older and sicker. His main interesting achievement was he normalized relations between the Catholic Church and the Chinese Communist Party, reaching a compromise that has allowed the Catholic Church to resume appointing priests and bishops in China. Yeah.
I also before Pope Francis died, I didn't realize he looks that much like a hard-boiled egg for like in the last little bit. It really caught me off guard looking at all this stories.
He was 88. I don't know what you expected from him.
Not much. It's just it caught me off guard.
Listen, he was a sweet old man.
You also look like The Rock.
Like I fuck with them, like to the extent that I could fuck with an official in a in a religious institution, but still it was just a little surprising to me.
Yes, it is also worth pointing out that the last thing he did before he died was meet J.D. Vance.
Yeah. and
two for two.
There's something to say to meeting either the weirdest looking guy or just hearing the most absolute vile shit you could hear and be like, yeah, I'm done with this earth. I can't do it anymore.
So Luis Antonio Tagle is the next big candidate. Another American election parallel would be...
Can you be a Canadian?
A Canadian election parallel, let me think. He was the groomed successor to Francis. This is who Francis wanted to replace.
So this is Carney.
Carney.
This is the Carney to Francis's Trudeau. So this was who Francis was setting up to be his successor. He would be the first Asian pope. He's Chinese-Filipino.
For the Chinese century.
Now
people have called... This doesn't need to be spoken of now. I don't know why everyone's saying it's the Chinese century, like a new empire rises and falls exactly every 100 years. But
I mean, America had like an 80, 100-year run.
Yeah, we've had one. And everyone's like, oh, this is what happens to every nation as it hits that age.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Well, the UK did pretty well before that.
Yeah.
So, Luis Antonio Tagle, he's the most likely next candidate. He's a bit of a progressive... As Catholics go, he wants to retool policy around LGBT people and divorce, but still is a hardliner against abortion. He is the most likely next pope, so we're most likely to see a Chinese or Filipino pope. Now, while the Catholic Church is on the rise in China, it is on the back foot in the Philippines. So electing a Filipino pope might be a strategic move for the Catholic Church.
To grow their base.
Yeah, Protestantism has been growing really rapidly in the Philippines lately. So
as much as I guess we'll use pro-abortion as the term. I would never expect the Catholic Church to be the same.
Well, we'll get into some candidates here.
Really?
Francis has really shaken up.
Okay.
The Cardinals.
So yeah, the thing is, I don't think you'll get any of the candidates who hit it 100%, but you will get some people who hit pretty close
and are generally nice guys, despite their views. Yeah. So Peter Turkson is the next big candidate.
Shout out Ghana.
He is one of the more likely candidates. He's recently overtaken Cardinal Sarah as the West African favorite, which is good because we'll get into Sarah later. But Turkson is for another progressive who wants the church to moderate its views on LGBT rights. I know he was a strong advocate against Ghana's repressive anti-homosexuality laws. So he's also sort of an anti-corruption guy, but that's sort of lesser to his main like progressive thing is gay people. Now, Peter Erdo might be the worst candidate.
Where is he from? Let's let him know.
Hungary.
Yeah.
Peter Erdo is a hard right neo-reactionary from Hungary who is a close political ally of Viktor Orban. He's been a mouthpiece for Viktor Orban's political project, and he is not just anti-gay and anti all the progressive stuff, but he is a hardline sort of anti-migrant guy. So he's compared migration to human trafficking. He's towed the line on white nationalism. He is like the Nazi candidate for the Pope.
That's insane. I don't even I'm kind of curious to see how he squares that trafficking angle. Like, how can you be against migration of all things? Like,
well, I'm assuming something about like because I believe there's parts about following the law of the land within the Bibles, like really hyper focusing on that. Alone.
Yeah.
So another hard right cardinal who's now dead, George Pell, endorsed Erdo as the next pope before he died. So Erdo is collecting a lot of right wing momentum. Matteo Zuppi, just another vague progressive. Jose Talentino Calasa de Mendonça is an interesting character. First of all, youngest guy currently on the block. He's 59. So if he's elected, he'll be pope for probably like 40 years.
Okay, I got a question. Is it like the U.S. presidency where you gotta be a certain age to be considered?
There's no.
Wasn't there literally like a baby pope?
Yes, there was a child who was pope at one point.
Oh wow!
So there's no limit on how old you have to be, but usually they elect an old guy because most cardinals want to be pope.
Right.
So they don't want to wait 40 years for their next chance. Right.
Oh.
So they'll usually elect like a guy who's older and also.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Like they're like, especially because the pope's for life usually, and you don't want to be locked in with a guy who sucks.
Right.
Which sort of happened to Benedict XVI. He got pressured to resign over his handling of the sexual misconduct in the Catholic Church.
Oh, right. He's who
Francis replaced.
Over, right?
Yeah, but they would like to avoid another resignation, I assume.
He's still alive, right?
No, he died a couple years ago.
Oh, he died a couple years ago.
Yeah. But Jose Talentino Calasa de Mendonça, besides having the longest name, is also by far the furthest left socially candidate up for election. He supports female ordination into the priesthood. He supports abortion rights. He supports gay marriage, and he says that the church needs to like modernize everything.
Mm-hmm. So, this is the guy who wants to have a church TikTok?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So he's controversial and by far, I would say, like the most progressive candidate. The fact that he's even being considered, like his name's even being tossed around, means that the Catholic Church has changed a lot under Francis.
I want this guy to win purely because it increases the odds drastically on there being an American anti-pope.
Yes, because a lot of Catholics in the U.S. have been upset with Francis, and a lot of the American Catholic momentum is actually behind Robert Serra, who we'll get into, who is sort of like one step to the left of Erdo. Because a lot of American Catholics are they use Catholicism because like as a cover for their politics. Right. They're Catholic because it's the most right-wing mainstream religion that isn't Islam. So Mario Gretsch, he's just a centrist candidate, who cares. Pierre Battista Pizzaballa, first of all, best name.
Yeah.
Far and away. Yes, he is Italian.
I'm pretty sure I played this guy in Vampire Survivors.
So he is the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, and he has been big in the Israel-Palestine war as a peace advocate. Mm-hmm. So he has condemned the Israeli government, which has caught him a lot of flack, as he's also spoken out publicly against settlements in the West Bank. He's advocated for ceasefire in Gaza. He's been spotted in a keffiyeh. He's also anti-Hamas. And when Hamas did October 7th, he offered himself as a hostage in exchange for all... He said he would offer himself as a hostage if they released anyone that they had taken that was under the age of 18.
Wow.
Well, it would be kind of bizarre if he was pro-Hamas, given Hamas's religious tendencies.
Yeah, considering it is a Islamic
shocking
theocracy.
Candidacy for Pope is not an Islamist.
So he is the most Palestine guy in terms of the candidates. I mean, he literally lives there and has made advocacy for Palestine a big part of his thing. So Palestine was a very important issue to him even before the current conflict. Francis has been to Palestine, went to Palestine several times, and also famously has a phone call with the only Catholic parish in Gaza every night. Mm-hmm. So he did that up until he died.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a cool guy.
He was a cool guy, I think. Yeah.
Genuinely, what a cool guy. Regardless of his views, he's just a good guy.
Yeah. It's hard to hate him, no matter what you think of him.
I gotta
hate him, love him or hate him. You gotta love him.
Exactly.
Okay.
I got hit up.
Okay. There's one more candidate. If you're willing to stay for like 30 more seconds.
Okay. Yeah.
So Robert Serra, until recently, was the favorite to replace Francis. So Robert Serra is a Guinean Catholic priest who is he's not like a racist like Erdo, but is a hardline misogynist, hardline homophobe. He is the favorite candidate of like the J.D. Vance style Catholics.
Oh right.
If Erdo doesn't overtake him in that role, but
I guess Vance style Catholics are not doing too hot right now.
So
what happened?
So Robert Serra he became really controversial in the 2010s for basically like setting himself up as sort of a pseudo anti-pope, where he took on a much greater leadership role without the approval of the Vatican. He called it the parallel authority, where he was like, Francis is being a bad spiritual leader, so I'm going to go around and be a better spiritual leader than him. Right?
Oh, so doing the speeches and
wow. He's been making big power moves for Pope. So if he loses, it will be both good and funny.
I love that.
Also, just as an aside, this guy looks like the angriest like dad in the world.
Robert Serra.
Yeah.
He's like disappointed in everyone.
Well, he's going to be disappointed because he's probably going to lose, despite all his effort. Almost a Hillary Clinton-esque figure in like a further right Hillary Clinton, where he's like, he did all this politicking, sold himself out so much, and he's still going to eat shit.
He's Pierre Poilievre.
Yes, he's the Pierre Poilievre of the papal election.
How did I lose?
Yeah. So most likely candidate will be Luis Antonio Tagli. Favorite candidate, Mendonça or Pizza Balla.
Yeah.
But most likely it will be Tagli. We'll have our first Chinese and Filipino pope. So looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So Shrey, you have to hop off, so we'll end it there.
Yeah, honestly, we've got, we're on an hour. We're probably like dropping the first like handful of minutes. So
yeah.
My bad.
Do we want to talk about much else? Do you guys have much else? I got like one more story.
Not really. Like just on the last thing on the Pope thing, I think like I think it's kind of I get this is my young person's but it's kind of cringe to cry because the Pope died, but I think it's like there is a level of
when it comes down to it, Palestine lost one of its biggest shooters.
Yeah.
And if Pizza Balla doesn't win, that's a void that isn't going to be filled.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, shout out to the Pope for being... And I keep saying this, like, if you know any Christian, or if you grew up with a Christian, or grew up around Christians, like, the Pope saying the things he said and doing the things he did is, like, more than any of the regular Christians that I know would ever do. So it's great that they had, like, a leader of the Catholic Church who was, like, setting this example.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, Pizza Balla or Mendonça have my vote if I were a cardinal, but I'm not a cardinal. That's for good reason.
Yeah, Yeah, this is one of those news stories that I will observe. I will watch Conclave over.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not
We should watch
particularly
Conclave,
religious.
yeah.
It's like I'm really just going to observe it as it passes me. I guess I'll give a shout out globally to end off the episode to Ibrahim Traore.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The leader of
president of Burkina Faso.
Yeah.
for making it so that all education at all levels, is my understanding, is free. And then I went to double check everything as I look it up, and apparently also stifle a coup this morning. So I don't know the culture of coups around there. I know we have covered a fake coup on this podcast before, but there you go. We'll see if that shout out ages poorly. Maybe I'll look that up. And,
Another thing Pizza Balla did that I forgot to mention was on Christmas, I think of 2023 or 2024, like this past one, he told Christians in Palestine and Israel to not publicly celebrate it in solidarity with Palestine.
Wow.
Just to like not show joy over what has happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. See, yeah, what a guy. We lost a good pope.
No, that was Pizza Balla.
Oh, that was pizza? Okay,
yeah.
we might get a good pope.
Yeah.
Shout out. Shout out.
yeah, there's a good chance that we'll get a good pope.
Yeah. So, but we'll see. It's always possible that the Cardinals talk themselves into voting in Urdo, and then we'll see what happens. But
Yeah. Watch Conclave to see what happens. The ending for Conclave is so fucking wild. Holy shit.
I have not seen it yet.
I can't wait for people.
It's one of my next up movies I want to watch. So.
Yeah. We gotta talk about it.
I gotta book the theater here and we'll watch it.
Anyways, thanks for listening, y'all.
All right. Bye.
And we'll catch you next time.
Bye.